Now, with this request failure on API list items list item ID, whenever we put to that, if I try to unmark as red, I'm going to just sit here and spin, and then it goes back to unmark as red. So it never gets updated, and we don't see any sort of indication in the UI why that happened. So we want to show an error message here as well. And we actually already have support for this in our status buttons. So use async will take the promise that comes back from this onClick, which of course down here we get that update mutation call, which is going to return the promise from the mutation call. And so when run handles that promise, if that promise rejects, then it's going to update its error state. The reason we're not getting that nice error state is because React Query will actually swallow that error for us automatically, so we don't get unhandled errors, because it expects us to typically handle those errors by getting that error and is error state right here. And that would work fine. We could forward those along to the tooltip button, but I actually like the way that things are structured currently. And so what we want to do instead is we want to configure React Query to actually not swallow those errors and forward those along to any promise handlers that we have in place, like our run function from useAsync. So what we need to do to make that work is we need to make our mutation options include throw on error. But we actually don't want to throw on error for all mutations, just the ones in the status button. The rating and the notes updates, those actually are being handled just fine. We only want throw on error to be applied to certain scenarios. So what we're going to do is accept an options argument here, and we're going to combine the default mutate options with some options that are provided by the developer who's calling this function. And we'll do that also here. And we'll just copy and paste that. Whoops. And right here. There we go. So now each one of these functions can basically be like a simple wrapper around useMutation that carries with it some default mutation options. And now right here, we can say, hey, for this particular mutation, I want it to throw on error. And we'll do that same thing for all three of these. And with that, now useAsync can handle that error, and we can use that error to display some error state. So let's go ahead and try this again. I mark it as red, and we get our error state working. And here it says request failure for testing purposes. And if we click it, it'll try again. And I think, honestly, to me, it doesn't make sense that if we click it, it tries again. I'd like to reset it. So what we'll do instead is on handle click, we'll say if is error, then we'll call reset in useAsync. That'll reset us to our original state, setting is error back to false. And so then the user can click it again, and hopefully it works the second time. So now we click it, it fails, we click it again, and it's reset. And now if I remove this request failure and I try again, then everything's working swimmingly. So in review, we had a specific scenario where we didn't want React Query to handle errors for us, and instead we wanted to have those errors propagated as rejected promises from these mutation functions that we get from React Query's useMutate hook. And so we updated our hooks to be able to accept custom options and then merge those options with the default mutation options. And that way we're able to configure useMutation with throw on error true for these specific mutations, which are handled by useAsync. We also updated our handle click so that if we're in an error state, we can reset our error state rather than simply trying again. And so they can click it to reset the error state and then click it again to try again.